everybody, and welcome to the Total Soccer Show Weekend Review episode. My name is Taylor Rockwell. I remembered to introduce the show and myself. All that remains is to introduce my co-host, a man who never over-celebrates, regardless of if it's the first goal or the 13th goal. It's Mr. Ryan Bailey. Hello, Ryan.
Greetings, Tay. How are you on this fine Monday?
I'm awake, so that's a start.
That's one thing. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, this is the earliest we've ever recorded the weekend review, which is not that big a video. It's not like we're recording it at 5 a.m. It's just normally we record around 11. Today it's 9 a.m. And I think that makes me slightly sharper, slightly more alert and ready to go. I hope at least. We'll find out if that ends up being the case.
Maybe we should just be like professional soccer players and only work between like 9 and 11 a.m. every day.
That's the dream. I would be okay with that, except that then I would have to run a lot, and then I would be out of shape, and then I would like sweat and pant and look bad and be red-faced all the time. I don't know. I don't know if I need that in my life, Ryan.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Okay. Let's instead talk about all the action that was from this past weekend. To do so in honor of Romelu Lukaku scoring for Inter Milan, we're going to go back to the Romelu Lukaku thumbs up, thumbs down system of evaluating the weekend. We had some people point out on Reddit that was a fun, sort of lighthearted way to approach the weekend review.
So Are we calling it the Lukaku Index?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's an official thing. We're going to get it registered. It's a whole system we're working on. But we're going to be talking about lots of different games, mostly, well, actually, I should say all from Europe. No Major League Soccer on today's show, but a lot of games on the continent, and then a lot of Premier League soccer because there was lots going on in the Premier League. Ryan, let's start with maybe the big one from yesterday. At least I think it was the big one. Chelsea 1, Liverpool 2. Who is thumbs up? Who is thumbs down for you?
I'm going to say thumbs down to Chelsea's back line and their defending, Tay.
I think that's probably fair. And it's especially fair when you say it with that tone.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, obviously, we know that Chelsea's back line is a little bit leaky at the moment. We know. What gets me is, I think I've made this point before on this show, how Chelsea fans are very down on last season. Oh, Sarri was terrible. It was terrible to watch. So boring. We never achieved anything. Then you go, hang on. You finished in the top 4, you got to the League Cup final, you won the Europa League. Yep. Sarri delivered a lot. And let's look at Sarri's first 6 games in the Premier League. 5 wins and a draw. Let in, I think, 3 goals, maybe 4. That's not quite the same record as Frank Lampard has managed. 13 goals conceded in 6 games. That's over 2 per match for the math fans out there. And particularly the issue here is set pieces, isn't it? With both Liverpool goals here coming from set pieces, which is obviously a big organisational issue. So as fun as it is and as wonderful it is to have Super Frankie back in the ranks, this team, in my opinion, is a long way from being Big Six material. And a lot of that is down to the defending. And the other part, I'd say, is down to not being clinical. We can talk about it later, though.
Yeah, I don't disagree with pretty much anything you said. Because, yes, like the set pieces, you always want to do everything you can to defend properly, to be set up properly. But I would say even like the concession of some of those set pieces, like the Andreas Christensen tackle that leads to, I think, the second Liverpool goal, might have been the first one. But like, it's just, it's very sloppy. It's very last ditch. He ends up coming out, I believe, at halftime. And like, it was sort of fly by night or like fly by the seat of your pants sort of defending for me on a lot of occasions, and certainly not the level of consistency you would want. And then, to your point, you look at, I think, all 3 former Chelsea managers in Italy won this weekend. Antonio Conte, top of the table in Serie A. Maurizio Sarri with Juve, and Carlo Ancelotti with Napoli. So it sort of is like, well, of like former Chelsea managers seem to be doing just okay or just fine. Chelsea, for their part, not the strongest result, certainly not for their defending. I will say, I did appreciate that after the game they were applauded off by the fans. I thought that was interesting. Jose Mourinho did not. And I have thumbs down to Jose Mourinho for being a curmudgeon. He was basically making the argument that, like, if you want to be a big club, if you want to be challenging for the title, you can't just applaud hard work and heart. You have to kind of like, once you start settling for effort, you're no longer a championship team. And I understand where he's coming from, but I think it's not that they were just like applauding that they're applauding the process, that they support the process and what's trying to happen, and they support Frank Lampard. I don't think they're saying like, yep, that's good enough. I think they're saying like, yes, we feel like we're moving in the right direction. We did not feel that way last season, so we're more inclined to applaud and give credit where credit is due, even if it's due in a 2-1 loss.
Yeah, I understand where both you and Josie are coming from. If I'm going to mediate between the two of you today, Tay,
okay, that's fair.
I understand both of your opinions here, but there is this sense that even if this isn't good enough, the defeats are no longer as deflating as they used to be, I think is the point here. And there's a feeling that some good news is on the way, that this philosophy is going to take hold, and something good is going to be created from this identity that Frank Lampard is making. But my concern there is that Chelsea have never been a team to kind of allow an identity to take shape over time.
What's this now?
Maurizio Sarri, if you remember the start of last season, he says, I need 2 seasons to get my system down. 2 seasons, give me 2 seasons. He didn't get that. He got 50% of his request there.
Did he not?
He
didn't get the whole 2 seasons?
He didn't get the 2 seasons. And also, he did deliver quite, some silverware in that first season. So it makes you wonder what would happen if he got that second season. We know how much, the Italian game is in awe of what he created at Napoli. Could have had a similar thing at Chelsea if they'd given him a little bit more time. And this is what I don't, the feeling is that Lampard is going to get more time, and he probably will, but that seems a bit contrary to Chelsea's previous actions, doesn't it?
It does, but it also, I'm so confused looking back now. I know we talked about this last season with the weekend reviews about what was going wrong with Chelsea, why Sarri wasn't backed, but it's still, in retrospect, is just such a strange situation, as you talked about. He has successes, he does well, and then Chelsea end up letting him go anyway to Juventus, which is a system that I think, a resolution that I think they were more than happy with. And so, yeah, you see them now, and it's great they're developing, it's great they're kind of playing the system and buying into what Frank Lampard wants them to do, and he's a club legend and all that. But I still wonder, but would Maurizio Sarri be able to do something similar with the squad, especially a squad that he kind of, at least in part, assembled to fit his system if he had more time? And I feel like he probably would. But I guess it's all for naught because Chelsea, still in the rebuilding process, do not get the points here. Liverpool do. Do you have any thumbs for Liverpool?
Oh, I've got so many thumbs. My thumbs have been warming up all morning for Liverpool. I'm going to give them an up. It's pointing towards the sky for Liverpool in terms of... This was a game I felt where it's one of those games where you have to win if you're going to be a champion because you win even though you probably didn't deserve to. It's kind of that holding on to win like a champion. It feels very stereotypical, very Man United late 90s. Winning games, grinding through when you're getting under the cosh in the second half like they were here. And that's part of the problem with Chelsea, which I was referring to earlier. They're just not clinical. In this game, we had Mount and Batshuayi and Abraham earlier on, with these chances they just didn't take. And against Valencia last week in the Champions League, 22 chances on goal, and they didn't score any of those. So, that's a problem for Chelsea. But in terms of Liverpool and keeping all of those chances out, great for them. Thumbs up the way that they held on in this game.
It does feel a bit like, and I think maybe one of the commentators sort of made this argument that Chelsea smashed Wolves and just every shot they had went in. And I wonder if there was just an element of all right, well, that's how it is now. Every shot we take, we score. So everybody shoot all the time, and I'm sure something will happen, except maybe not for the last 2 games. And and I take your point absolutely about Liverpool, because when you're playing a specific style and a specific setup that you consistently utilize, when the other team adjusts to deal with that and they start having more of the game, there is that idea that sometimes you start to crumble because they figured you out and it's really difficult to change what you're doing. And for Liverpool to not necessarily change what they were doing, but just sort of dig in, get stuck in, I guess is the cliche way to put it, but I take your point absolutely that they kind of battle through that and come out on top and keep the winning streak alive. It was definitely a resounding result, especially given what Man City did earlier in the weekend.
For sure, and it is cliche, and it's a bit trite for us to say this. It's good that a team should win one, shouldn't win one. They're playing like champions. It is trite to say, but also it might be a bit trite. Your next thumb, perhaps.
The point you're going but my next thumb is going up for Liverpool's fullbacks for just being excellent.
Apparently they're good.
What's that?
Apparently they've got good fullbacks. Who knew?
Yeah, who knew, right? Who knew? Andy Robertson, what a difference a couple weeks makes. Having to delete his Twitter from all the abuse he suffered versus this weekend. Andy Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold especially, very solid. The first goal, just an absolute rip from Alexander-Arnold. That was impressive. But the little kind of designed set piece where they have the free kick that leads to the second goal, and it looks for all the world like it's going to be whipped in, and instead it's like a back heel that's then crossed in that I think throws off the defense a little bit. It allows Roberto Firmino to get wide open for the header.
Yeah.
So that sort of distribution, the way they're able to kind of provide such attacking width and get involved in the attack, but still do their defensive job and put out fires and track players when they need to. It was a very comprehensive performance to me from those two fullbacks, which is what Liverpool absolutely needed to get these 3 points on the road.
Definitely so. And obviously, one of the big problems against Napoli was that Napoli exploited the space behind them. Yes. And they managed to not do that, or Chelsea managed to not do that. So full credit to the fullbacks here. And we know that they're going to be up there in the assist charts at the end of the season, as they were last season. And we know that, they're very important to Jurgen Klopp's system. Bully for them, Tay. Bully for them.
Did you see that stat that was doing the rounds that, I think they are the top 2 assist getters, if not just for fullbacks, then for, all players. And it's, not even close. They're so far ahead, those 2 players.
Yeah.
I think a strong statistical season, fairly likely for both Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson. Anything else you wanted to talk about from this game before we move on?
One thing I just wanted to talk to you about, it's the Christian Pulisic situation.
Yes. Thank you.
In your opinion, is he anywhere near the starting 11 at the moment? Because I've been reading a few pieces this week saying, guys, don't worry about Pulisic, and I kind of had a sentiment similar to that when we spoke last week. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. Yep. But now I'm starting to think, well, he's behind Mason Mount. He's behind probably Willian, judging by this lineup, and maybe Pedro. I
believe so.
So is he 4th in the depth chart here?
And potentially 5th when Callum Hudson-Odoi returns? Yeah. There was an article in Pro Soccer USA about this. I guess they were at the press conference. They asked Frank Lampard. They said he was very clear. I would say he was somewhere closer to managerial speak, but I think the idea was others are ahead of Pulisic when it comes to Chelsea, that he has things he needs to work on, but it's worth remembering he's a very, very young player, so they don't want to rush him. He still will get plenty of games and plenty of game time, but I think all that definitely says right now he is not a starter. There was a great kind of Reddit thread in response to this. It's not always the case that Reddit is going to give you the best insight, but there are some great points in there about there's one, Adam Bell's retweeted it as well, that's sort of a breakdown of is he this? No. Is he that? Yes. Is it this? Yes. He explains everything that's going on. And it's a good post that kind of reminds you that he's a really young guy who has a lot to work on, probably has not developed as much as we would have liked in the last 2 seasons, especially with the way the last season went at Dortmund. So it makes sense that he is going to struggle a little bit, is going to have to adapt and change the way he plays and figure out the system.
Yeah.
But it is still a bummer, I think, just because we all had these ideas that he would just kind of come in and be fine and electrify and make everybody forget who Eden Hazard was. Instead, I don't think that's really been the case.
No, I think the way people try to rationalize it as saying, it's okay, he's young, he's going to get plenty of game time down the line, League Cup coming up and all that.
Yeah.
But this is a team that's full of players who are 21 and under who are untested. And he should very much be among them if he's going to break through, surely.
I will say he does play in a position that does have at least a decent amount of veteran presence there, because you've got Ross Barkley who can play wide and is veteran to some degree. Pedro in there as well, Willian in there. So at least it's not a position where it's maybe one veteran and then 5 youngsters and he's lost out to all of those youngsters. I do feel he's behind some players that provide that experience, and then Mason Mount obviously played with Frank Lampard last season at Derby. So there are some extenuating factors for me, but it is still the case that not seeing him in this game at all, not seeing him get involved when Chelsea are chasing and need to get a result. There were shades of Dortmund last season, and I did not love his time at Dortmund last season, so I'm hoping things turn around a little bit for him, but I'm also willing to give him time and give Frank Lampard time to find a way to bring him in.
Indeed. Let's just give it time. The passage of time should fix all.
Give it time. Let's move it on in terms of time to Leicester City 2, Tottenham 1. I'm going to start off with this one, Ryan. I'm going to say thumbs up to Brendan Rodgers, who I hope stays at Leicester City for a very long time. I hope, because it does feel like he's having success. It feels like at a certain point he's going to be linked with a bigger team. And I kind of hope he doesn't go, because this to me feels like the perfect combination of Swansea, probably below Brendan Rodgers in terms of what he wants to accomplish and where he wants to be. Maybe Liverpool was a step too far. Celtic, they're going to win. It's not that big of a challenge for him. But Leicester, it's they should be in that top 6, top 7 conversation. Maybe they push on and get top 4. It seems like he's got the team buying into it, and it just feels like Leicester are right there with where Brendan Rodgers, I feel like his ceiling may be, which is a weird thing to say about a human, but it just feels like a match made in heaven, and they're getting the results. So I do hope Brendan Rodgers hangs out in Leicester for a little bit longer.
Definitely. They're just so much fun to watch. This was a great game to watch in general, wasn't it? Which was ruined by a certain acronym piece of technology, which I'm sure we'll get onto soon. This is a Leicester team. They've got lofty ambitions, as you say. They definitely should be in that top 6 conversation. They are the side most likely to break into the top 6, it seems. Really fun attacking side. They're very entertaining. Do you think it's because Brendan Rodgers is using more of the envelopes antics or less of them?
I have to believe he's using less of those.
Yeah.
I hope that's the case, because that was such a weird idea. What was it? Like, I have 3 players in here who aren't going to work. Is that what it was at Liverpool?
I got 3 envelopes in my hands. One of them... hands? I can't do Northern Irish. One of them has a player's name who won't be here at the end of the season or something, wasn't it?
There it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do also appreciate,
hands.
I can hear some differentiation in a lot of the English, UK accents. And yet, universally, when I talk to people, if Northern Irish comes up, it is always referred to as the least pleasing of the accents.
Of the British ones?
Yes. So that you couldn't do it just then is not surprising to me, since you seem to have a lovely, charming accent.
Oh, I do. I'd say Birmingham's probably the worst one, surely.
Actually, you know what? I was hanging out with 2 guys from Birmingham, and they, I believe, actually said that about their own accent. That they have the least desirable accent of anyone in England, and yet when they come here, people are like, "Ooh, you're from England." So I guess that bounces out a little bit for them.
In the accent rankings, it's definitely Geordie is one of the best, Welsh is one of the best. Actually, I like Northern Ireland because it's like Irish is a bit like this, but then you move your jaw a little bit and it becomes Northern Irish like this, and you don't move your teeth very much.
That was impressive.
Thanks.
I think maybe an SNL audition for
I've been watching Dairy Girls on Netflix. They say their vowels and consonants differently.
And now I just feel like I'm talking to Brendan Rodgers, which is useful, because now I want to know about your tactics. But I do like that Leicester this season still have some of that kind of Route 1 directness. Jamie Vardy is always going to provide that, but watching him this weekend, the way he is able to accelerate and then just slow down to in 2 yards to be able to take a shot and set himself up perfectly, you see why he's been so successful there. But you combine that with some of the technical brilliance and the play of James Maddison, who I have thumbs up to for just being a genuine joy to watch. He scores the winner. It's a screamer. But in between kickoff and scoring that winner, he has so many great little moments and passing displays, dribbling displays, moments where his vision is excellent. You see why he is linked with larger clubs. He's one who I hope doesn't move, even though he's routinely linked to Manchester United, just because it seems like he's so well fit at Leicester right now, and they seem to be having such success. Now, the Premier League is a fickle mistress, and it could be that in 3 weeks we're talking about how they haven't won in 3 weeks, and it's all terrible. But right now, things seem to be going well.
Very much so. Yeah, to say Maddison was a standout player in this game. I thought Pereira was very good too, at the right back. But Maddison, it does seem like, is it going to be this January or next summer when he's ruined by Man United?
It depends on how things continue to go. If Manchester United continue to exist as a club in January, but I'm guessing there will be some strong links around then for sure.
Can I move on to a thumbs down, please? I hate to ruin the tone here. I'd like to move on to Tottenham, if that's all right.
Let's do it.
Thumbs down, Maurizio Pochettino.
Okay. Why do you say these things? Just because they lost, or because you've just had enough of Mauricio Pochettino looking sad?
Well, he's very grumpy. We know that. And he's not getting results on the road. We know that. January 20th was the last league win. That's a long time ago. I think it was Fulham, possibly, that was in January. It just seems this unhappiness in the camp in the summer, it seems like it's continuing in one way or another, and we think we're over the hump of it, and we're not. And I think that he doesn't last the season. I was talking to someone the other day about who lasts longer, Solskjaer or Poch, and I think there's an argument to say that Solskjaer lasts longer.
All right, I want to hear this argument, because I am fascinated as to how you have Mauricio Pochettino leaving before the season ends.
I just think he will. I think he'll be unhappy. I think there could be a situation where, if Tottenham's poor form continues, is that there's possibly even a narrative which goes against what I just said, that is there a narrative where he moves to Man United before the summer's gone, before the summer comes?
So you're proposing almost the Mauricio Sarri situation at Chelsea, which is that like the situation seems like it's going to become untenable. He doesn't really want to be there anymore. Maybe the fans are. That does feel like to be the biggest difference right now is that I feel like the fans are still in on Poch. But if Man United come calling with a massive offer, maybe that solves some problems for Tottenham. Because I do agree with you that there are these moments like in the post-match presser they ask him about VAR, which we'll come on to shortly, and rather than sort of, I don't know why this stands out to me, but it does, that his response was just like, rules are the rules and we have to play within the system. And while that is a very emotionally mature answer to that question, it's also coming on the heels of a loss on the road where you do expect him to have a little bit more of that fight and to kind of use VAR as a way to not have to talk about his team. And like that is what managers will do. They will deflect by like making themselves look like jackasses, or they will deflect by blaming other things that weren't their fault or talking about how they're definitely the better team. And then all the headlines are like, can you believe this crazy guy? Whereas they're not writing about how like the player's poor performances. And here for him just to be like, no, VAR was fine. Next question to me feels like, yeah, I want to talk about other things, and not talking about VAR to me was an insight into where Mauricio Pochettino is right now.
Yeah, and I think also I read something into Harry Kane's comments after the Champions League result earlier. It was he said something along the lines of, we've been doing this for years and we're making the mistakes we made when he first came, and that sort of made me think: is he referring to some sort? He's referring to a regression, but is he referring to a regression from a tactics and management perspective as well? He's putting it on the team here, but by extension, he's putting that on the manager.
Yes, and he's putting it on a manager who has not been able to have much success on the road. Tottenham's away record is abysmal. I have thumbs down to it. They have not won away since January 20th. That was 2-1 at Fulham, who were obviously relegated. I think like every team that was in the Premier League last season has won a home game with the exception of Huddersfield since that time, or at least I think a Premier League game. So I would say worrying signs for Tottenham there, which were not helped by VAR. Should we talk VAR, or do we want to avoid that entirely?
I think we need to touch on it because it was a big thing, but every single week it's a big thing now because that's all we talk about, VAR and its decisions, because it's ruining the game. Now, I think obviously there's I would say down to VAR, but also down to the people complaining about VAR, because I can understand why VAR is an issue here. Obviously, with the disallowed goal in this game and how Son was, it's impossible to judge where that line's drawn when the exact point the ball is kicked. And we've had an amazing game here, and it was a really entertaining game. And the biggest talking point once again is VAR, which is frustrating. And, there's this conversation about whether we should tweak the rules to give the benefit of the doubt to the attacker in a situation like we had there. But then my other down here is that, this is what we asked for. People were asking for consistency. I was one of the people asking for consistency in the ruling. And now we have it. We have definitive consistency with the best possible technology. And then we're asking for subjectivity. We're asking for a layer of subjectivity to put over it. Well, just give the attacker the benefit when it's almost onside. No, because you asked for the consistency, you've got it, so stick with it. And I think Mark Clattenburg, his quote was, Song Heung-min was offside, get over it. We have to accept this is the best technology available right now. And I kind of agree with that, even though it's frustrating seeing how narrow that decision was. That was a decision. It was tight, but that's what it is.
Yes. And I think like while it's frustrating, and if I were a Spurs fan, I would probably be. I like to think I wouldn't feel too differently, but like right now, my feeling is like he is a centimeter or two offside, which feels incredibly harsh. But I think Graham Souness for Sky had the line that was like, you can't be a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. I'm not sure about the science of that, but I understand his point, which is just sort of like, if you want it, I'm sure he's a doctor for sure. He's a doctor the way Dr. Pepper's a doctor, I think.
He's a doctor of pogbarology.
That is definitely true. But I take the overall idea that like you're either offside or you aren't. And if we want it to measure instances of offside, then it's going to be particular because you're now using kind of science and data and lines drawn down the pitch. And I do understand that like it can be frustrating if you don't know exactly when the ball was struck. But if we're going to kind of go with the offside rule as it is, then VAR is going to get that right, even if it seems very sort of like narky in the way that it ends up like ruling out goals.
Narc. I like that. That's a good phrase.
Yeah,
way to rule out the goal, narc.
Yeah, VAR narc. And then it's a strange game though, because the Leicester goal that was ruled out is absolutely the right usage of VAR. It's given as a goal. You go back and look. Players are definitely offside. They're definitely involved in the play in that they're scoring the goal. So then it gets it right. And so there's that disallowed goal, but then the Tottenham goal that's disallowed for a marginal offside call. It makes it feel harsher, but in this case, 2 goals ruled out correctly according to the rules for offside, and you kind of I think I understand why, Ryan, you have down to VAR but down to people complaining about VAR, because it becomes a big talking point. That's really my thing I don't like about VAR right now, is that we inevitably have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But simultaneously you see the way it's discussed online and in the media, and it's a almost like willful decision to not look at the subtlety of it and instead be like, this is ridiculous and it's ruling out all these goals and I hate it. And it's just like, all right, well, now emotion is factored into the equation a little bit.
Do you think that Poch was secretly a bit happy about it because it was Sergio Aurier who had the goal disallowed?
It was such a good hit, and then yes, maybe it was.
It was probably outwardly going, oh no, but inside he was like, yes,
that works for me.
Take that, Serge.
Anything else from Leicester City 2, Tottenham 1, Ryan?
Well done to everybody involved. Oh, well, the Harry Kane goal. Falling over, trying to go for a dive, and then sort of hooking it in with his foot anyway. And, there's the argument that some refs would have, given a penalty or a free kick for a foul there, which they could have done. Or they could have given a blow for a dive as well before he knocked it in. But he's very lucky that he knocked it in there, I think.
But that is still like, I can't tell if that is the genius of Harry Kane or the luck of Harry Kane that I'm now interpreting as him being a genius. But to, while falling over, still be able to kick a ball. And to me, it's absolutely intentional. The way he's falling, he's desperately just trying to get a foot on the end of it, but it ends up being a really, really good shot.
Yeah.
Tottenham have other even clearer shooting opportunities later on that they hit directly at Kasper Schmeichel. So to see Harry Kane falling over and just getting a foot to it, it almost reminds me of like the old idea that you don't want to have to think as a striker. You just want to kind of go by instinct and back yourself to put the ball in the net. And here, Harry Kane definitely isn't really planning what he's doing, but is still able to get a shot on goal and turn it in while falling over. I love this goal, and I'm very happy you reminded me to talk about it.
No, you're welcome. And any fans out there listening want to have a bet with me about Poch lasting it past January, find me on Twitter.
There we go. Find him on Twitter. That felt like a little bit of like see me outside, catch me outside.
Come at me, bros.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before Ryan gets assaulted by Total Soccer Show listeners, we should mention that today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at SeatGeek. Folks, do you ever feel like ticketing websites? In fact, I'll change it to you. Ryan, do you ever feel like ticketing websites make getting to the event difficult on purpose?
It's the bane of my life, Tay-Tay. Bane of my life.
I had figured. It's as if they're so big they can get away with not caring about the customer experience, which makes Ryan sad. We don't want that. No. With millions of live ticket events and a price match guarantee, SeatGeek proves there's a better way.
The real question here is, what if those ticketing sites felt like they actually cared, Taylor?
Ooh.
And the thing is with SeatGeek is SeatGeek cares. They want you to have the best possible stadium or arena or concert or sporting experience, and they help facilitate that, Taylor, with some magical things they do on their site, including the rating scale of ticket deals. They've got a scale of 1 to 10. It's sort of a traffic light system. If a deal is really good and it gets a 10 rating, a nice green light, you should go ahead and take those tickets. If it's amber, maybe look for a green. I like that. It's a good situation. It's not done on pricing. It's done by, rating of the seat relative to how good it is in the arena you're talking about. I like it. Great site.
And if we're extending our conversation from earlier, would we say SeatGeek is Brendan Rodgers right now at Leicester, and all the other ticketing sites are Mauricio Pochettino? Maybe they don't want to work as well. Maybe they're a little frustrated by things. They're not able to put on the venues they want to or the players they want, so they don't enjoy it. Whereas SeatGeek gets the job done, makes everybody happy, and finds a variety of ways to do it by searching a variety of ticket sites. See what I did there, Ryan?
That's a wonderful analogy. All the other sites are very Spursy at the moment. Let's just say that. Very Spursy.
And every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets with confidence, as opposed to, say, if you have a slightly questionable transfer policy, you can't guarantee they're going to be successes, but SeatGeek allows you to do so. Yeah. And they'll even give you $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Ryan, how is it possible for people to get $10 off?
$10 off your first SeatGeek purchase, you say, Taylor? What you need to do is get the SeatGeek app,
That makes
Today,
sense.
preferably. You can do it on your phone. You can do it.
That would be good.
Access it online too. Promo code TSS.
There we are.
$10 off on your first purchase. That's promo code TSS for $10 off on your first purchase at SeatGeek. I've been using some ticketing sites recently, by the way. As you know, it's been the summer of Ryan, the summer of music. I saw Casey Musgraves earlier in the week, which I spoke about earlier on this podcast, and met up with Total Soccer Show fan Adam Kiefer, who is her bass player, who's a lovely fella.
That's pretty phenomenal. Was it a pretty solid show?
Very solid show. One of the best I've seen this summer, definitely. She has a really good stage setup. Her voice is incredible. Band are great. Couldn't ask for more.
And did you get to? Were you like on stage with the bass player? Is that how it all worked out?
Yeah, I took over for a few songs. No big deal.
You can play guitar, right? Does that mean you can also play bass? I don't know how these things work.
Yeah, bass is just two less strings. Easy, mate.
That's what I thought. But again, I'm so musically like challenged that I wasn't sure that was the case and didn't want to offend bass players the world.
No, that was an offensive comment I made because bass is a very different beast altogether.
Oh, okay. See, there we go. Yeah, Flea and John Entwistle are mad at you now. So you have
one of them's madder than the other.
That's probably true. Let's move to Arsenal Aston Villa, where it's definitely not Arsenal fans who are upset, although I am slightly upset with Socrates. I will say positive things about Arsenal in a moment, but I have to start with Socrates or Socrates, depending on how you want to pronounce that one, for some painful acting and then almost conceding a handball. Ryan, did you see Socrates flailing about as though he'd been blinded?
The old headbutting your own hand trick, huh? It was that little chestnut,
that was impressive. It's like he was stuck between the legs, which is not, I think, a place you necessarily want to be. But basically, there's I suppose that makes sense. There's basically a scrap. He gets tangled up with Wesley. He's between the forwards, like knees, essentially. Like he's sitting on the ground. He's fallen over. The referee gives the foul. The AR does, and Wesley sort of like raises his hands in protest to say, like, "I didn't foul him." And when he drops him to his side, maybe there's a little bit of contact with Socrates, but it's very obvious that he's not been hurt the way he has, and instead he rolls around on the ground. And in that moment, it felt like, oh, this is going to be the way it goes for Arsenal. They get the red card. You've got players flopping around and not like having the best game possible. They're 1-0 down at that point. And then they find a way to turn it back. The game finishes 3-2, and Arsenal battle back, get 2 goals in 3 minutes in the 81st and 84th. Callum Chambers, obviously everyone's pick to equalize with a great little goal. Then Aubameyang with a free kick at the end. And it felt very un-Arsenal, in my opinion.
Very much so, yeah. No, I was getting all fuzzy with Schadenfreude when I saw it was 2-1, going into relatively late on in this game. But I also like a comeback win. But the Socrates play acting wasn't the biggest Socrates story of this game, was it not? Because that handball at the end, I am still scratching my head as to how that's not given under the current handball rules. How it struck his arm. His arm was, I will call, an unnatural position. He extended it out. It looked like the ball was headed to the net. How on earth is that not given?
Yeah, and you can see the intentionality of, on the reverse angle, like he definitely is leaning in to try to like put a body on it. Obviously, he's not trying to handle the ball, but I think he's trying to like have it hit his pectoral, but it ends up hitting his arm. And so to me, it's a clear handball. Should have gone to VAR, but this is where I am wrong. In that, like, this is me being one of the people who thinks, like, oh, you got to VAR that's how it works. In reality, that's not how it works. They have stated that there are, like, instances of handball in the box where you don't want to penalize the defensive team. You do penalize the attacking team, seems to be the way it's going. And to the extent that I believe I'm correct in saying that if this had been given as a penalty, VAR likely would have overturned it because it's a shot from relatively close distance, I guess is the argument. It felt like it was far enough away that Socrates was able to lean in and try to block it. That means that maybe he had time to make an intentional decision. So I'm with you that I don't understand why this wasn't given. Other than that, I guess that's how the rules are right now. And once again, maybe we should look at those rules one more time in the offseason.
Why do we bother with watching this game in general when things like this happen? I don't know.
Because then things like Aubameyang's winner happen, and it's a lovely free kick. Some questions about Tom Heaton, who sets up the wall to defend the near post. He then stands at the far post and gets beat at his far post. I know there's lots of bodies in the way. But it was a great goal from Aubameyang, and it made me wonder about a question we had last week. On the Friday show when Daryl was back, we had a listener ask if Weston McKennie would thrive at Arsenal. I think Daryl and I both kind of agreed that he probably would not. one of my reasons was because I couldn't think of a recent Arsenal player who had thrived at the club. That had been a while since I thought of somebody who was like in their peak form doing all these amazing things. But this weekend, I think RuPaul Caligiuri on Twitter tweeted to suggest that Aubameyang is thriving, given that he got a share of the Golden Boot last season and is continuing to be a big-time performer for Arsenal this season. So, Ryan, would you say that Aubameyang is thriving at Arsenal?
Yeah, I think based on his goal record, for sure.
All right.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that Weston McKennie would.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we were.
Yeah, because... I mean, what would you expect him to be, like a Cesc Fabregas figure and rise up like that? Is that the question?
Yeah, I think like comes in like has like a bit of pedigree from like having played consistently at a young age, or I guess he didn't play for Barcelona, but like having a bit of pedigree coming in from Europe, where I guess for Cesc Fabregas, if you're in La Masia, then that automatically means the same as like starting for Schalke for 2 seasons, I think is how it balances out. But yeah, it comes in, becomes a role player, becomes a squad player, becomes a key player, and then maybe moves to Barcelona, I guess, is what it ends up being with Weston McKennie.
Yeah, I mean... My instinct is to say I don't think that would happen because I don't think he's as high a quality, but he's also very young, and you know that could happen. And you look at Ceballos is doing a decent job in that kind of role as well. I mean, but it depends what context you're putting in and how we judge a breakthrough, I suppose.
Oh, I think actually Daryl kind of hit it on the head with saying that like McKennie can be so up and down in some of his performances that sometimes he is very reliable and locks things down, and then sometimes he like runs into challenges and picks up an unnecessary yellow or like runs around a bit too much, and that did feel sort of like Arsenal this season. So maybe he's a perfect fit in that regard, I think, is where Daryl ended up. But in this game, players that have been unreliable at times this season, I felt like performed really well. Guendouzi especially, he draws the penalty that kind of turns things around or starts the turnaround. Yeah. I saw today that did you see that he was getting into it with John Terry throughout the game?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I guess, and when Aubameyang went and scored the winner, I guess Guendouzi went over and celebrated in front of John Terry by holding up 3 fingers. So apparently they don't get along very well, but I enjoy that trash talking back and forth. So maybe thumbs up to Guendouzi as well for some trash talking. We can move to Man City.
Can I just jump in there and give a little thumbs up to? I want to go back and say thumbs up to Chelsea fans who not only had the captain leader legend JT banner still at Stamford Bridge, but underneath it a massive Eden Hazard flag flying at the Liverpool game. Living in the past a little bit.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Was it a new banner? Had they just gotten it printed and it was so shiny that they wanted to keep it going?
Maybe they're paying for it on the installment plan in order to get some value for money out of it, I guess. It was there. It was behind the goal.
I like to think that it was like New York subway style. They just keep like pasting on top of an older one. So if you like peel the Hazard one off, there's a Fernando Torres one on there. You peel that one off, there's probably like an Eto'o one on there. You just got to keep going back and back and back till eventually you get to like a club legend it's been long enough that now they actually are a legend. And then you leave that one hanging up and it looks like they're honoring their history as opposed to maybe just not updating their banner profiles.
There we go. Banner profile updates, please.
Well, Man City responded, and I have thumbs up to them for maybe the biggest bounce back imaginable. After losing to Watford midweek, obviously they win in the Champions League, but then they win big this weekend, 8-0 over Watford. Ryan, where are your thumbs?
This match was much like my 6-year-old when I pack her school lunch, 8-0. You like that? You like that one?
I can't believe I laughed at it. I hate puns so much.
I was working on that material all night, and I got to that. That was
a good one.
That was where I landed, and it's true in many respects. Yeah,
I just want to jump in to say I think it resonates because I have nieces and nephews who refuse to eat food no matter what, or have very specific rules at their schools about what they are and are not allowed to eat. So I think it's that pun really registered on a personal level. Maybe that's the issue. Daryl's puns don't always register on a personal level.
I estimate that probably 65% of my calorie intake is from food that has one tiny bite out of it. That's all I'll say.
Is it also cut into various shapes to try to make it more appealing?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and it's wrapped in saran wrap. Anyway, let's move on to Man City, which I think was where this conversation started.
I believe it was.
This was a pretty good bounce back. 8 unreturned goals is pretty good. I think, full credit to this. There were several players on the field who were fantastic in this game. Bernardo Silva was fantastic. Sergio Aguero was fantastic. Riyad Mahrez was great. Kevin De Bruyne was great. Rodri had a pretty good game. I thought there wasn't any weak spots really in that City team, which I think is fair to say from an 8-0 win. The only thing I might pick up on is the use of Fernandinho, 34-year-old Fernandinho, as centre-back. We saw Eric Garcia come on late. And I was hoping that he, or maybe Taylor Harwood-Bellis, who got a good run out in pre-season, who impressed in pre-season as sort of the new John Stones in a good way. I was hoping that one of those two might get a start, and this being a good situation to do that in. You could argue, they've got the League Cup coming up and they might get their starts there, but I thought this was a situation where either one of them could have been blooded in from the start. So apart from that, I thought it was pretty spotless from City.
I have had an experience, obviously not at Premier League level, but in college, I thought I was the next up in the central midfield pecking order. And I was the central midfielder ahead of me got injured. And I wasn't celebrating that by any means, but I was oh, that means I'm probably going to start the next game. And then instead, I think a center back was moved into central midfield. And it was a logical choice by the coach, but in that moment I remember thinking oh, okay, so I'm not even close. Got it. So it can definitely have that feeling of okay, I'm going to get my chance. Maybe I'll be given the opportunity, especially against the Watford team that eventually conceded 8 goals. Maybe you could try some different people at center back, but I guess it works out for Pep, and Pep knows better than I. But you do wonder if maybe some of the center backs are going to be a little bit sad not to have come in, especially because it feels like they probably would have scored, given that I think everybody on the City team sheet scored or got an assist, or was at least close to scoring at various points in this game.
Yeah, even Otamendi getting on the scores for the fifth one there. Yeah,
right.
They could have probably just played without centre backs in this one. To be honest, they would have been fine.
Slowly pull off people as the game progresses. Yeah, which is maybe a thing people wanted them to do because 8-0, Ryan. It's a disgrace. How can you keep scoring that many goals?
Well, that leads to my thumbs down is the debate about the celebration and scoring too many goals in a game. Obviously this harks back to the summer and the Women's World Cup and the US's performance against Thailand, where there was criticism of the players celebrating a bit too much in those latter stages. And I can understand where people are coming from. They're annoyed that conversation wasn't applied to City here. I understand where they're coming from, but I just don't think it's the same thing because so when Kevin De Bruyne puts in the 8th goal, which was one of the hardest shots I've ever seen hit, by the way, he must have hit that about 300 miles an hour. He didn't celebrate. They had stopped. They toned it down by those kind of goals.
It was polite hugs at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It was a little bit more dignified. It was different, and also Watford are a fellow Premier League team. They're operating within the same ecosystem. Yes, obviously, City have got a lot more resources, but it's not quite the same thing as a financially doped national side taking on a minnow who barely have a soccer program. It's not quite the same thing. There's less national and jingoistic stuff at stake here. They're both in the same ecosystem, if that makes sense. So I don't think that argument quite holds water here.
Wait, so did you see people making that argument that they should have stopped celebrating or should have stopped scoring?
Yeah, I saw lots of people saying, it's annoying how this wasn't, we had a go at the women for doing this and we're not having a go at City was a few comments I saw on Twitter, and I didn't quite think they rang true.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought you were just from the show notes, Ryan had a debate about celebrating goals. And I thought you were pointing oh, we shouldn't care. We should just always be happy that they scored. I see what you're getting at, which is, that's crazy to me. No, this is a Premier League team and a league that we have seen goal difference come into massive play as the season winds down. So you want City to do everything they did. And unless you're, a Liverpool fan, you probably didn't want them to do everything they did, or a Watford fan. But I think that's a silly argument. If you can score goals, score goals. And I say that for both Man City and the U.S. women's national team, because how dare you, Ryan? All I hear is bitter tea because you didn't like the Alex Morgan celebration.
I'm still mad about that. Chelsea fans might be happy about this as well, because it means Watford's goal difference. Well, they've conceded more goals than Chelsea now, so it's only Watford and Norwich have conceded more now, so it's another one that helps them out in that respect.
All right.
But there's also something else at stake here: the 9-0. The famous Man United Ipswich 9-0, which I remember very vividly because I was watching my team Wimbledon and we were playing Man United the following week, and I was like, okay, they've just beaten a team 9-0 and we're going to play these guys next week. It's going to be tough. But maybe that was in the back of their minds. Get to that 9-0.
I hope so, because that would make it more entertaining that they're we want to just completely erase Manchester United from the history books. We're going to take all of their records. And also, I think at the same time, it would have bummed out Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because I think he scored 4 goals in that game as a late substitute, somehow made it 4 goals. And so to be reminded of happier times probably would have made Ole even sadder. Maybe if Kevin De Bruyne had gotten a few more chances, they would have scored. Maybe Bernardo Silva could have scored more. Those are 2 gentlemen who I have thumbs up for. Kevin De Bruyne especially, by my count, played a role in 5 of the 8 goals, either scoring a goal himself, getting a very good assist, or just playing like key passes that cause problems or set up opportunities for Man City. I thought he was one of the most electrifying players in a game that featured many, many, many exciting performances.
Yeah. And pour some out for all the fantasy managers who had Raheem Sterling in their team, by the way. Got an 8-0 win and he didn't even come on. That's rough. That's a rough one. That's a rough weekend.
That's a little rough. Any other thumbs, either up or down?
I just wanted to give a little thumb down to Bernardo Silva. Obviously had a very good afternoon, but also got embroiled in something of a storm from a tweet he sent out, directed at his teammate Benjamin Mendy, comparing him to a Portuguese confectionery, which is being deemed as a racist gesture, and not a big fan of that kind of thing. And he later tweeted out, "Can't even joke with a friend these days. You guys, ... Not the most watertight defence there, Bernardo. Don't think you're going to get away with this one."
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he has. I did see some people saying, like, Mendy didn't have a problem with it, so if he's not offended, then we shouldn't be offended. And I guess, like, maybe that's true, but my feeling there is, like, yeah, but then you're still kind of publicly asking a person to say, like, right, you weren't offended, right? And that kind of puts it on Mendy, which I feel like is not a great...
that doesn't make it all right.
It does not, as opposed to saying, like, oh, sorry, like, I probably should have done that, and then thinking about it and realizing that, yeah, you definitely should have done that. Maybe learn from that situation, learn from that mistake. That would have been a good response. I would have been okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. So that was the only sort of sour mark on that performance for the day, I'd say. Right. How long before Quique Sanchez-Flores gets fired again, by the way?
I feel so bad for him because the whole narrative was like, here he is, he's going to turn it around, they're back where they belong. Oh, 8-0. Yikes.
We know that Watford have the Trump administration policy of revolving door of all personnel, so, it could be soon.
It does seem to be an equally effective strategy of just keep firing people until eventually you either have success or lose 8-0 and have to kind of publicly deal with your actions. We'll see what Watford end up doing.
Yeah.
And maybe Manchester United as well. They're maybe in a similar boat in that sort of policy.
Maybe so. Make Watford great again / keep Watford great. That's all I can say.
Before we talk Manchester United, I think that might be our final Premier League game. We should talk about today's sponsor, Dollar Shave Club. When I talk about Dollar Shave Club, I cannot stress enough the quality of their products. They've spent years developing, crafting, and refining everything. And I believe that to be true because I try to use a safety razor when I can, which is just like that single blade, sort of like metal razor. And that comes with it's not like a mortar and pestle, but it's like a brush that you lather up, you put that on, and then that's how you shave. And I tend to nick myself way more often than like I usually do. But so I started using the Dollar Shave Club, like shave butter and the shave lather as well. Both of those work incredibly well. And I have significantly fewer, if no cuts at all when I use those products. So I can definitely say that is a high quality product. Ryan, you have finally gotten to use Dollar Shave Club products. Are there any that you have particularly enjoyed?
Taylor, this is what it feels like when doves cry because this is the exact same story of my life you've just told here. For many years, for 4 or 5 years, I've just used safety razors, right? The single blades, as you say, because I thought, no need for those 4 or 5 blade, promotional dealies. And I've been reasonably happy with that, but I do cut myself quite a lot. And then I got through the Dollar Shave Club gear. I got through the blades. I got some shave butter. I got some post-shave dew and a couple other little luxuries from these guys. I used it for the first time last week, and legitimately the best shave I've ever had in my life.
You texted me that, and I was very, very excited because if you just said it on the show, I might think you were just saying it on the show. That you excitedly texted me this stuff's great. I was like, hooray! We're not the only ones who think so. And I guess lots of other people do because lots of other people subscribe to Dollar Shave Club. But yes,
the sad thing is, I was at my gym and I didn't even wait till I got home to text you. I was texting you from the sink after I had my shave. I was so excited about it.
You shave at the gym. You're a real adult, Ryan.
Well, because I think it's the opposite of a real adult, because I don't shave in the morning, because I shave once I've got out and I'm halfway through my day and I've had a shower at the gym. That's kind of, use their hot water, not mine. That's my philosophy.
Well, right now, if you'd like to use the Dollar Shave Club products, if not Ryan's shaving facilities, you can put the quality of Dollar Shave Club products to the test. Their Ultimate Shave Starter Set has basically everything you need for an amazing shave. The Executive Razor, Shave Butter, Prep Scrub, Post Shave Dew, which is a very nice feature to
I was going to say,
keep things
the
nice.
Dr. Carver's Post Shave Dew is the absolute icing on the cake. I love that stuff.
What did you enjoy the most about it, aside from just feeling fresh?
Like an hour later, I could still kind of smell it on my face.
Yeah, right? It's like the lingering scent of like freshness that you did your job well and you're not bleeding from your face copiously. So that's good. The best part is you can try it for just $5. After that, the restock box ships regular size products at regular prices. Ryan, how can people get their ultimate starter set?
Ultimate Starter Set runs for just $5. DollarShaveClub.com/TSS. That's DollarShaveClub.com/TSS for the best darn shave of your life.
There we are. So thank you very much to Dollar Shave Club for sponsoring today's show and helping Ryan and I not cut our faces, which maybe is slightly more palatable than watching Manchester United play in their current capacity. West Ham 2, Man United 0. I have thumbs up to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's English language accent because I found it more interesting than the team he currently manages. I was listening to him talk and I was realizing that my assumption now is that when you learn a second language, which English is to him, you learn it sort of in the capacity of where you're living. Yeah. And so to hear him talk, I have Norwegian cousins, and there are lots of very similar cadences, and the pronunciation is very similar. And then every now and then you can hear that sort of like Mancunian Yorkshire accent come through, and it's this strange, like, whoa, suddenly he's from England, and then suddenly he's Norwegian again. And again, that was really captivating to me because the things on the field were not captivating at all. Ryan, I'm assuming you have very complex, detailed thoughts about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's accent?
Yeah, I agree. It's very pleasant, but the king of that is Peter Schmeichel, who sounds like half Manchester, half Danish. Because he learned English up there. It's great. It's wonderful.
But yeah, I do have down to pretty much everything else from this game in terms of thumbs, which is maybe like it's a best representation of how many things are wrong at the club, because I think Alan Shearer from Match of the Day said it very well, which is basically like when they did the analysis that they do on Match of the Day, they kind of didn't have much to talk about, because usually when you have a quote-unquote big club losing to a quote-unquote smaller club, like the smaller club has they executed their game plan perfectly and look how they frustrated and sat deep and bunkered and countered or played this different style of play. And here their point was like, West Ham didn't really have that good of a game, which is where Manchester United are right now, that you don't have to have that good of a game to be able to beat them and to kind of beat them in a fairly convincing fashion. And I think that there are many, 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 many problems and reasons for that at Manchester United. And I don't really want to go into all of them because we're not a Man United podcast and I'm aware that I'm a fan, so I have more of a vested interest than most. But I will just say that this game was sort of from top to bottom, everything that's wrong with the club was there.
Very much so. And I feel the same way as Alan Shearer here, because I was making notes for this morning and I thought, I've got nothing to write down here. It was a really boring game. Man United were desperately slow moving the ball. And that's about all it was. I was watching this game with my father-in-law, who's in his Man United shirt, Man United fan for his whole life. He grew up in Manchester. And he was just sitting there just didn't say a word. And that's not like him to watch a game like that. And it was just like, this is just... He said there's not enough talent on field, and I kind of agreed with that to an extent. But also I thought it's not. It's much more than that. It's the way they're being directed. It's the culture at the club. It's the way this club can turn good players into bad players. It's the way they should be moving a lot faster than they are. It's a combination of a lot of things. And as you say, West Ham, they looked really good here. They successfully shut Man United down. United couldn't really create anything. But at the same time, West Ham didn't do anything terribly special to get there.
Yeah, and even West Ham's goals, it's a great free kick from Cresswell, so that one maybe removed. The other goal from Yarmolenko, it's just Man United not stepping and kind of standing off and being a little bit lackadaisical in their approach. And then, similar to the end of last season, you start to see them get stretched out, and they're kind of playing a couple different styles at a couple different times. And I think there's probably not enough talent there. Marcus Rashford gets the groin injury. Now there's even less talent than there was there before, which speaks
to a program seller up front, didn't they, for part of the game?
Yeah, Mason Greenwood had tonsillitis, so that may well have been the case that they just like, yeah, sure, this guy, why not?
Yeah.
And that speaks to recruitment and the way they've kind of gone about building this team in the last 5 or so years. And it really was just kind of all of the glaring deficiencies were on display. And I think it is not it's a fairly common thing to say at this point, but it's common because it's accurate that like there is a lot of work to be done at that club before things get any better, and I don't think a January window and a couple more players will solve it. So again, that's why I hope James Maddison doesn't leave Leicester, because I don't want to be responsible for ruining yet another exciting player.
They made Andriy Yarmolenko look good.
Yes, and that is unacceptable. All right, enough of the Premier League.
Can I one more before we leave Premier League land?
Fine.
The Twitter video of Edward Woodward and Phil Jones.
Oh yeah,
you seen this thing? So it looks like if you lip read Jones saying sacked in the morning, and it looks like Woodward turning round like an angry dad on a long road trip and saying, if you don't shut up, I'm coming back there and we're turning the car around. But it's surely not what's being said, right?
No, I think if you watch closely, like as it ends, the kind of camera pans out just a tiny bit, and you can see there's a woman sitting next to Phil Jones.
Right.
And I believe that is Man United's chief press officer, or at least she was when they did their American tour a couple seasons ago, because I interacted with her. I sat next to her. So I'm assuming that Ed Woodward was talking to... There you go. I'm pretty sure he was talking to her, probably about like, how are we going to talk about this?
Yeah.
And I think Phil Jones had just maybe muttered something either to her or just to himself. But with that said, it absolutely looks like Phil Jones has said sacked in the morning. Once you have that sort of caption to go off of, or once you have it in your head that's what he's saying, that's what it looks like. And yes, it looks like Ed Woodward has turned and shot him a very angry look. Or maybe also a like, wait, should we do that? Is that an idea? Can I do that? And then maybe things will be better? Okay, fine, we'll do that. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's buy some noodles or a tractor or something. Oh, I have emotions, Ryan. I have emotions.
Should we move on?
I have such emotions that I think I'm taking us very long on today's episode. I know you've got places to be, so we should run through a few more games before we get you out of here. Should we move to Spain?
Let's do that. Let's go to fun not in Catalonia, in Granada, shall we?
Yes, we shall. Where Grenada hand Barcelona a 2-0 loss. Not the way I saw this one going, Ryan. Thumbs?
Down for Mr. Valverde for me, Mr. Tete. Very poor start. Is it the poorest start in, 24 years? I think the stat I saw.
So.
Barcelona, 7 points from 5 games. There's some questions being asked of the lineups here, and, players like Gerard Piqué, are they suitable to a team which, is required to press high? And what was Barca's shape for a lot of this game? So they took off Ansu Fati they brought on Ansu Fati for man of the match, Junior Firpo. And that kind of ruined the shape a little bit, and people had to move around, and it was like, what's going on here? What is going on here? And it made me think like there was a good jumping off point for Valverde after that Liverpool game last season. Why is he still here?
It's been a debate that I have seen from Barcelona fans for a while that Valverde is not good enough, but basically Madrid being as bad as they were, Atletico essentially needing the rebuild, which is where they are right now. It has sort of allowed Barcelona to sort of continue to succeed when it's not necessarily because they are this like lights out next level team. Obviously, they're a very good team. Valverde is an okay manager, a fine manager.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it has been quite so like they've been this dominant team that they were under Guardiola or other coaches, and everyone else has been, doing their best and just can't keep up. Instead, I think maybe they've benefited from kind of a downturn in form of a couple of other teams. And it's almost to me like, I'm going to take it back to United for a moment, but like Mourinho when the United finished second, and I think that was, you saw why he's such a good manager. He's able to get that team to that position and win the Europa League. And I think the board sort of saw that as, oh, well then you don't even need investment. We'll buy you one player or two players and then you'll win the league. We're totally good here. And I think maybe Barcelona the same, that Valverde does enough with what he has and Lionel Messi to sort of like paper over some of his own cracks maybe. And so it ends up thinking like, okay, yeah, we can continue to compete. This is the guy for us, longevity and stability. And now here they are being kind of forced to experiment and try different people people in different spots. And yeah, to your point, it absolutely did not work in this game. And it was one of the more disjointed performances I've seen from a Barcelona team in a very long time.
Yeah, quite depressing for Barcelona fans, this one. But, thumbs up for Grenada, by the way. For third in the league from this one. They're flying at the moment, aren't they? And they look good in this game.
They're ahead of Barcelona. It's insane. Yes, and to your sort of joke that still has me laughing, Junior Firpo, man. Junior Firpo. I feel so bad. He's in the TSS scouting network. I was excited to see him get this move, but at the same time apprehensive for all the reasons we've talked about when an exciting player goes to a bigger team. You don't always know how many minutes they're going to get or how they're going to look. And in this game, especially for the first Grenada goal scored by Aziz, it's pretty brutal. I think Firpo gets beat at least 2 times, maybe even 3 times in the same sequence that leads to the goal.
And not just beaten 2 or 3 times, by Roberto Soldado.
Yeah, that's not great. That's not the man you think of as this like fleet of foot genius.
Bobby Soldier getting one over him. Oh boy.
So yes, I think Junior Firpo did not cover him in glory. I don't think Frankie de Jong playing as like a number 6 Sergio Busquets style player necessarily worked for Barcelona either.
But
and
the whole
not
defensive line,
Messi in the lineup.
Sorry to jump in there, but that Firpo error on that first goal, which was 2 minutes into the match, by the way, was appalling. Yep. But also, if you look at Grenada, they've got a man over. They've got an unmarked man on the back post when the ball is deflected in anyway. Yeah. There's a lot going wrong with that Barcelona backline during that move.
It is very strange to see that, like, you would expect, like, okay, there's no Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez has finally returned, so there's going to be a little bit of a downturn in form, but obviously they'll start to put it together, they'll bring in some of the new names and some of the younger names, and yeah, like, they're Barcelona, they'll find a way through, and I think that would be a sort of, like, lazy bit of analysis, and maybe it is, but it would be lazy analysis in other leagues, but when it comes to Barcelona, who have been a relative institution for the last 10 years or so, you do expect them to just sort of like, yeah, but it's still Barcelona. They're going to win. Maybe they'll like draw a game that they didn't draw last season, or maybe they'll drop a couple points. But for them to be an 8th on 7 points after 5 games is a very, very surprising situation for them to be in. We're going to have Graham Ruthven on the show later in the week. He is our kind of La Liga expert, so I'm going to pick his brain about what's gone wrong at Barcelona, what's gone right at, say, Grenada and Real Sociedad, who are currently in the Champions League spots. I don't understand how Atleti aren't in those spots either. They're currently 6th. So many things to try to figure out about La Liga, which I think we'll do later in the week, unless you have more things to say from Grenada 2, Barcelona 0.
No, I'm all set, but well done for getting Graham's surname pronounced there. I can never do it.
No, thank you. Hopefully I did, but I probably didn't because I'm pretty bad at names as well. I did want to briefly mention Lyon 0, PSG 1. I have thumbs up to Neymar for reminding me why we all care about Neymar. For the second time in 2 games, or in 2 league games, he nets the winner, very late winner. In this one, I don't know if you've seen it, Ryan, but for those who haven't, it's a ball played at him. He has like 3 different defenders on his back. He's in the box. He's able to kind of turn with one touch and turns his entire body at the same time, takes another touch, then hits it back across into the far side netting. It's like inch perfect. An inch to the right, it goes off the post. An inch to the left, it's saved. But he puts it in exactly where it needed to go to get that win.
Yeah.
And like, it does not forgive all of the other things that have surrounded Neymar for the last 2 years, and not even an argument I'm even coming close to make, but more so just that moment of like, right, this is why we were all so excited about him at Barcelona, why we were so excited him at Santos, and he still has those abilities that make him that next level player. It's just been so long since we saw them, so it's just nice to see him back to doing Neymar things.
Yeah, it's good that he's reacted to this negative situation in a positive way, obviously getting this, winning goal here, and did the same thing against Strasbourg last week as well, that beautiful goal in the dying minutes. But yeah, well done, Neymar. You're doing the thing you paid a lot of money to do in the league, right? Which is a little bit below you by your own standards. So congratulations.
I hate that we have to have that qualifier of like, congratulations, you're doing the thing that you should be doing every single week.
Yeah.
Wow, boredom is a thing.
By the way, he treats every home game as an away game. Does he treat every away game as a home game now?
That would be terrific. I hope so. That would be confusing for him, I think. But, stranger things have happened.
PSG keeps switching their kits up and, you never know. You might confuse him.
A couple other quick points. I did want to say thumbs up to the aforementioned Schalke, who win 2 wins in 6 days, I think it was. Weston McKennie playing most of that game. I think he subbed out in the second half, but looked solid, as did Sergino Dest, playing the entire derby of PSV Ajax. That one finishes 1-1, so just wanted to get 2 quick mentions for some young Americans is doing some exciting things in Europe, provided that Serginho Dest remains American. Supposedly he's having talks with the Dutch Federation this week, but that's been talked to death, and I don't really think anybody wants to hear more about Serginho Dest until he makes a decision. So instead, Ryan, let's go to Italy.
Italy. We had the Derby della Madonnina, the Milan Derby, the San Siro.
Thank you for knowing the name of it, because I always call it the Milan Derby, and I'm wrong.
Yeah, I might have called it something wrong. Who knows?
Nah,
we don't fact check on this thing. A thumbs up, though. Antonio Conte. Bringing it back to Internazionale. Maximum points in the league, playing very nicely, got some good players on board, responded very well to that disappointing Champions League result midweek as well. Brilliant.
Brilliant, and similar to your point about Liverpool and sort of finding a way to win, this was a game where the Lukaku goal, the second goal, was a well-taken goal from him, but the first goal was a Brozovic shot that was deflected, and then there's a conversation about offside. Initially, I believe it's not given. They review it, they decide, oh, well, there was no intentionality of the play, there's no contact from the offside player, so he's not materially involved.
No.
So it is a goal, but it was one of those sort of sometimes you gotta shoot a hopeful shot from outside the box and see what happens, and that is the difference on occasion between first and second, and right now it is, because Brozovic gets that goal. It allows the kind of way this game is shaped to go, because now Milan have to open up a little bit more, have to try to attack a little bit more, and then Inter are able to get that second goal. So I think Antonio Conte has definitely got his team clicking, and I should say Romelu Lukaku performing decently well. I have thumbs up to him. He is the inspiration for thumbs up, thumbs down. He didn't have a great game, but I have to believe that scoring in a Milan derby while United lose to West Ham has to feel very, very good in terms of see, I'm a big time player. Maybe you guys just weren't big time enough for me.
Yeah, definitely. And a nice redemption story of, players who are ruined by Man United can get better afterwards. Well, I suppose we've seen that before with Di Maria and lots of other players, to be fair.
There is Alexis Sanchez still in Inter Milan. Maybe we shouldn't hold our breaths. But if Alexis Sanchez comes in and becomes Serie A player of the season, then we know something is very, very wrong at Manchester United.
By the way, I haven't followed Ataman Humber's Instagram, his two dogs. I'm assuming they've got some nice Milanese digs now.
Ooh, nor have I, and I feel like that's probably I guess there's a reverence for dogs in Italy. I mean, more I don't know. Do you think the English love their dogs more so than the Italians, Ryan?
I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't know. I think they probably
put you in an uncomfortable position here, haven't I?
Mate, I'm picturing Milan being a fan of smaller dogs that fit in handbags than big Labradors.
Sounds very, very likely and is almost certainly correct. I think it's just that it's a genuine dog question for me at this point, because I know I'm American. I'm a person whose dogs sleep in my bed. So that's where I am with this one. But I know that is a very strange way to be for even a lot of Americans. But I know then for Europeans, maybe there isn't the affinity to the next level that maybe Americans have for their dogs. So I just didn't know if that was a normal thing or if maybe that is just the world over, everybody's down for Alexis Sanchez to have adorable puppies.
Did you say in your bed?
I did.
Not on the bed?
Well, yeah, on the bed. They're not under the sheets.
Because they're in the covers with you.
Yes, exactly. It's me, then the large dog, then the little dog, then my wife. We all sleep under the covers in a very picturesque, turn of the century or Little House on the Prairie sort of situation. That was definitely not turn of the century. That was a little bit further back than that. No, yes, they sleep on the bed. A key distinction, Ryan. That's why we have you here, for that attention to detail and to talk about our final game of the day, Juventus Verona.
My Verona, very good stuff. Let's give a big thumbs up to Miguel Veloso and that wonder goal he scored in this one, with the bizarre situation from which entailed a missed penalty which hit the woodwork twice, cleared to the edge of the box eventually, and in comes that wonderful Veloso shot.
I saw it titled, he scored a FIFA goal against a team that doesn't exist in FIFA. I'm guessing that's because Juventus have given the rights to another, gaming console or something like that.
Oh,
but yes, right. It's a great volley from Miguel Veloso that maybe, in the moment I was like, okay, here we go. This is going to be more drama for Juventus. And then they're able to find their way through. But it's Aaron Ramsey who helps them find their way through. So it was Miguel Veloso, a player who I haven't thought about in a very long time, scoring the goal for Verona, and then suddenly Aaron Ramsey, a player who I guess the Arsenal front office didn't think about for a very long time, coming in and helping kind of jumpstart the comeback for Juve. Two semi-forgotten names in my mind coming back to do big things, and I enjoyed it immensely.
Very much so. And by the way, look at Juventus' starting 11 for this match. It's pretty good. Then look at their bench. Bernardeschi, Emre Can, De Ligt, Gonzalo Higuain, Khedira, Mandzukic, Pjanic, Rabiot, Szczesny. They've got 2 teams. That is not fair. Their squad is far too big.
That's there's a team here in Richmond that in the adult league who always has 24 players turn up to their games, and on the one and all 24 of those players are very good, but it's also the case that when your team only has 11 show up and you look across to just see a full team plus a full team of substitutions, it's very demoralizing, and maybe that's what Juve are going for is we're gonna have all the best players, so when you turn up to play against us, even our subs warming up, you're oh god, those guys they're not even playing in this game. Now we're in trouble.
Have you seen a better subs bench than that? It's amazing.
No, I can't say that I have. That's pretty absurd. That is an accumulation of talent that doesn't seem entirely fair, and potentially explains why Juventus have had the success that they have had.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's but it could be more problematic than positive in many ways because their squad is too big. So,
but what they don't have, with that said, is Egyptian goalkeeper Mahmoud Gad. That's the final note I want to mention on today's show. Because we always end up talking about the Egyptian league. Pyramids beating ENPPI 4-0 on the weekend. Again, I feel like people who don't know where I'm going with this one are probably very, very confused. But Egyptian goalkeeper Mahmoud Gad had the weirdest sort of double save I think I've ever seen. There's a long ball, kind of a driven long ball that he sprints off his line to Manuel Neuer-esque head clear. It's a diving header, but it's that sort of strange goalkeeper diving header where they make themselves almost into a tube, where the arms are down by their sides and it's this weird flying header. And then I think he, for a quarter second, celebrates and then realizes that ball is still very much in play, gets up, starts sprinting back towards his goal because the Pyramids player, I don't know his name, has taken the ball out of the air one time. It's a volley from 40, maybe 50 yards away.
Great volley.
It's an amazing volley, and yet God is able to get back in time to sort of dive, flail, and push the ball over the bar. It's an incredible sequence of events that I will link to in the show notes because everybody should check it out. It was my favorite play of the weekend. So thumbs down to Mahmoud Gad.
Thumbs down?
I mean, thumbs up, excuse me.
I was going to say, it's the opposite.
I mean, thumbs down to ENPPI for not backing up that amazing performance by scoring some more goals. They lost 4-0, as I said. But yes, thumbs very, very, very much up. Excuse me.
Give God more credit. He's at the top of the Egyptian pyramid. Football pyramid.
You worked on that one all night too, didn't you?
I'll try.
All right, Ryan. Well, you have tried and succeeded very much on today's show. We talked about lots of soccer from all over the place, lots of Premier League soccer because it was a very fascinating weekend in the Premier League. So, Ryan, I will just say thank you very much for watching all the games, doing all the work, having all the thumbs. It was very much appreciated.
Thank you, Taylor. Always a pleasure. Never a chore.